Hello and welcome to World History Encyclopedia. My name is Kelly, and today I am joined by author and traveller Bill Arnott. Bill has won numerous literary awards and is a best-selling author for his book, A Season on Vancouver Island. Today, though, we're going to be chatting with Bill all about his Gone Viking travel saga series in honour of the third instalment, Gone Viking 3, The Holy Grail, published by Rocky Mountain Books. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to talk to you about your new book and the series in general.
Kelly, thank you very much for inviting me. I've been hoping to visit with you for some time. As I said, I'm a fan of World History Encyclopedia. I love what you're doing and the manner in which you share and educate all of us and enlighten us. So it's a genuine privilege to be visiting with you here in person, so to speak.
Thank you so much. Well, I figured because you've got three incredible books out now, maybe you can start off by telling us all about the series, the travel saga as it is.
Well, sure. So my name is Bill Arnott, and we're talking about my travel logs or travel memoirs called Gone Viking. And as you said, Kelly, there are three of them. Gone Viking, a travel saga, Gone Viking 2, Beyond Boundaries, and the latest is Gone Viking 3, The Holy Grail. So these are nonfiction books. I've spent the better part of a decade and a half trekking around a lot of the globe, going to these most famous historical sites where these famous explorers came and went, and specifically with the Scandinavian or Viking bent. Where did these voyagers come from? Where did they go to? Settlements, raid sites, trade sites. And I know that you've covered many of these fabulous Viking historical nuggets in previous episodes. So I know you know all of this good stuff. My take on it is I really had fun with the fact that, as you know, that word Viking was originally a verb. It more or less meant to go a voyaging. These Scandinavians would go abroad, they would go a Viking. So I had fun playing off that fact. And in my mind, I have effectively gone Viking in my way, recreating many of these classic historical adventures and expeditions, but also writing very clearly with a Scandinavian theme or a bent. For example, in Gone Viking, a travel saga, I go to the places where Leif Erikson and his dad, Eric the Red, came from, their settlement in Greenland, and where Leif and his sister and brothers went and came to, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, so over on the east coast, Newfoundland, and we have this wonderful archaeological site and these historical tidbits of Viking history here in North America. And then the rest of this series was me literally going further afield, Gone Viking to Beyond Boundaries. I meant that figuratively and literally. So I did come and tour around the South Pacific, in my mind, in the footsteps of a modern day Viking, Thor Heyerdahl, and how he explored and found new fascinating links through his research and travels and speculations. And the latest book, Gone Viking 3, The Holy Grail, it's very much a European focus and Scandinavian and a bit of the Arctic I explore in trying to unravel this classic, almost cliched terminology, the Holy Grail. It's a bit of a treasure hunt, a bit of a mystery. There's lots of speculation. Lots of people feel they have found what is the Grail, whatever that might be. There's 200 items that are officially the Grail across Europe. And I wanted to sort of peel back those layers. So that was a few more years of travel and research and writing and working with experts along the way, archaeologists, anthropologists, historians. And there you have it in a good-sized nutshell, the Gone
Yeah.
Viking travelogue series.
You touched on a couple of things I was going to ask about. One of them was the kinds of people you meet along the way. So did you reach out to experts, historians, archaeologists prior to leaving on your adventures, or did you come across them on your way? And did they really have they added a lot to your book, sort of as in the end product?
Yeah, so a little of both, Kelly. Initially, when I realized, oh, I think a story is shaping up here, my wife and I had been traveling as tourists around Scandinavia, and this is 15 years ago when this seed got sown in my mind. I was at a Viking ship museum in Roskilde, that's just outside of Copenhagen, where they've dredged up a number of classic Viking ships that were reasonably well preserved in the clay there. And so it's a working, living archaeological museum. So there are students and anthropologists and archaeologists working there now, but it's open to the public. Now, there's a big old map on the wall there, all the places that the Vikings came, went, raided, traded, settled, and it red arrows branching out across the top half of the planet, and it looks like a map for world domination. And I hadn't until that moment appreciated the geographical scope with which these classic adventurers and artisans and warriors and families and settlers, the extent to where they traveled and the influence they had and continue to have around the globe. And I thought, oh, if I could just start going to some, if not all of those places, well, then next thing you know, I'm planning the next few years of travel to specifically go to what I felt were the key historical sites, which is a long way of saying, yes, then I did start reaching out to experts saying, hey, can you walk me through things? Here's what I'm doing. And some of them were familiar with previous projects I'd done. And almost everyone was keen and supportive and enthusiastic. And then, to my delight, giving me access to in-depth research materials that wouldn't have necessarily been available to folks just coming in off the street and asking for these deep university archives and fabulous firsthand accounts from Arabic writings of the Vikings around Turkey and what they called Arabia at the time. So, and then subsequent to that, now I have the pleasure and privilege of working with a lot of experts, and even in the most recent book on Viking 3, The Holy Grail, visiting with a Viking ship builder, believe it or not, that's here on the west coast of Canada, but building in the traditional sense, a Norwegian gentleman, a craftsman, artisan, and I now have an American pal who lives on the east coast of America, who's also midway through his Viking ship that he's building from hand with real southern Swedish oak and doing it all according to historical accuracies.
Wow, that's incredible. So it's really become sort of collaborative in that sort of aspect.
Well, yes, I feel privileged to have access to a lot of experts. I'm absolutely sharing in the books my stories with you. They're present tense, real time. It's as though we are taking these expeditions together, having this fun, meeting new people. That's a lot of the fun, is not knowing who we're going to encounter, and meeting marvelous people, or people that don't want to speak to us can be part of a fun part of that experience. Open-minded travel and adventure and all the highs and lows that come with that.
Absolutely. So you said that the idea came to you whilst you were traveling. So you didn't initially set out with the intention of creating a travel log like this?
I didn't. It was very organic, because I'm a fan of this genre, what I consider to be very well structured travel literature. Some folks will call it an armchair escape, travel writing, travel memoir. And some of my heroes are people like Sir Michael Palin or Jan Morris. These are sort of classic writers, Patrick Lee Fermer. And here's a historical nugget for you. Historically, we feel he was the basis for the James Bond character, an international traveler and spy and linguist who was trekking across Europe in the 30s. But so I love great armchair escape and travel literature, and I want to share things in that same manner. But now, as I say, there's history, there's some mild adventure, and a great deal of humor people will enjoy as they're having this or adventure alongside of me as companions, and I would take the role of guide, I suppose, as well.
That's brilliant. So you said you've been traveling for over 12 years creating these books. That
Yeah.
must be a pretty incredible way to live, just being
Well,
able to go on
it's a
these
huge
adventures.
privilege to be able to do it. And now, when I say it was starting in 2007, then I was coming back to earn some money, pay the bills, and do some laundry, and then out again for a month or 2 months or 4 months. Many 3-4 week trips, piecing this all together. But yes, this is what I do now. I was just delighted and overwhelmed to be to receive a fellowship from the Royal Geographical Society in London, and you would know of many of these people, the list, and you appreciate fellowship as a gender neutral term, fellows of the Royal Geographical Society, and the peer group is humbling, but it feels like I got a seat at the grown up table as I carry on in this manner.
How fabulous. So, as you were saying before, it started off with the Vikings in mind and then it sort of transformed. So, do you still sort of have that Viking viewpoint or that focal point through the whole three, or has it moved from Viking history to just you going Viking?
There was a little ebb and flow, Kelly. Book one was very much following these classic historical Scandinavian, capital V Vikings, all around Western Europe, the British Isles, and then, as I said, following the route of Leif Erikson, Iceland to Greenland to Newfoundland. I let that ebb a little bit with Gone Viking 2 Beyond Boundaries. That's more about the voyage, the journey, good fun, good adventure. And now for Gone Viking 3, the Holy Grail, I've drawn that, I've cinched that back in, so it's very true to that capital V Viking Scandinavian bent. Because what I found fascinating, and you know this as well, with technological advancements, ground penetrating radar, getting more sophisticated, we are constantly finding cool new threads of history that we can unravel and pursue. And wouldn't you know it, there are some fabulous Viking historical roots that overlay with some of these classic Holy Grail stories, like Arthurian Knights, where myth and fact intersect, and the Knights Templar, and those classic trade routes and pilgrimage routes were much like the Viking routes going across Europe into Asia. All that north side of the Mediterranean, all the way up to the Arctic, and we've even found some very cool things in Iceland that could tie in with what may or may not be this quintessential grail, if that is something that was part of a biblical history. So that's a long way of saying yes. It's the lion's share of this is very true to those Scandinavian explorers, those voyageurs, adventurers, and Vikings.
That's really incredible. And I'm going to ask you a question that's probably going to be difficult to answer considering the extent to which you've traveled. Maybe there can be like a short list or a top three. What are your favorite places that you have visited, whether it be countries or sites or museums? Maybe the ones that inspired you the most throughout
Well, I
your
thought you
adventures.
might want to know this, Kelly. So I actually put a lot of thought into it because it's a pretty good.
Great.
My drop down list is pretty substantial. But to narrow it down for you, right off the bat, I would have to say Greenland was very special because it was logistically tough to get to. I mean, cruise ships go to different parts of Greenland now. You can get there. You can fly to a couple of the larger centers. But for me to go to Brattahlid, which was where the Thorhilda and Eric the Red raised their kids, Leif, Freydis, Thorvald, and Thorsten. So where these kids, Ericsson's and Eric's daughter, grew up in that southwest corner of Greenland, it is not easy to get to. And then I had to hike personally over a mountain ridge trek to get there on my own. So there was it was some demanding. There was self-reliance. It was based on weather and all that stuff. So it was a trial just getting there to see these fabulous sites. There's a bishopric, meaning the last site of where the bishop had a place. So it was a Christian enclave at that time. And now there's a heavy Danish influence there. There's a wonderful indigenous population is living in a very similar manner that they did 1,000 years ago when the Leif Erikson and his family would have been there. Yes, you've got this sort of Inuit and Inuktitut melange happening and this multicultural scene. And the scenery is spectacular. I read a wonderful quote saying it's frighteningly beautiful there. And that's accurate. You're out in the middle of things. You are seeing what's happening with the planet, the good and the bad, as the icebergs are calving and floating off around the world. You're seeing it all there in real time in some of the most grandest vistas and scenery than you can imagine. And just a little nugget there, Kelly, is the air up there is so clear, which we're not used to as city dwellers. You can see forever. And I'm sure you've had experiences like this in your various own excursions, but never before had I been that almost disoriented and realizing, oh, this is normal. We're supposed to be able to see 50 kilometers. That's normal on flat ground. We have so these kinds of things were awe-inspiring and intimidating and rewarding. Oh, and my second answer would be I've loved sailing around the British Isles because I was on a historical ship with a small crew and we were battling the elements and we were, again, very much self reliant. I didn't feel in great danger, but we were definitely, there were times we were tethered up in lifelines and survival suits. So it felt like I was, again, pushing the envelope to recreate some of these classic Viking voyages.
That's just incredible. It sounds like you've had the most amazing time. Um, was there ever an experience where you had an idea or a preconceived notion about maybe a journey or a place, and then you visited and your ideas were flipped?
Hmm. Um, yes, there are certainly places. For example, if I thought, oh, this seems like a place or a couple of places that I ought to go to, that historically these feel like imperative touchstones, so that I can at least, although I'm an enthusiast in the field, I've gained some expertise. Um, Having said that, if you get to the odd place and it feels a tad touristy, even though I'm a tourist, it's still nice to feel as though, gosh, maybe it's still unspoiled. That can happen on occasion, but I feel privileged in that that hasn't been the case most often. And even if it does feel a bit overrun, invariably you're going to meet some lovely people and have a good takeaway and some decent experiences along the way. And that to me is, the silver lining.
Brilliant. So either way, it ends up great, regardless.
The lion's share, at least that's what I'm going to retain from these experiences, Kelly, by choice, my comfortable bubble.
That's good. We like that. Um, so I just want to see. I feel like I had. I've written so many notes. I'm just. I did want to ask about your travels into Oceania, mainly because I'm in Australia, and the fact that you really were. I mean, you did say you've gone beyond the boundaries of the Vikings in your second novel. How was it really moving beyond those boundaries into spaces like Australia?
So, your part of the world is a place that my wife and I love and have visited many, many times. And just for another fun common thread for us, I'm privileged to be an international editor for one of your Melbourne publications. They're based out of Williamstown called Stereo Stories. And Vin Mascal runs us a beautiful mixed media concert series and online publication. So, I'm familiar with the beautiful music scene and an artistic community in and around Greater Melbourne. And my wife and I have explored lots of the East Coast, like lots of North Americans can get there a little bit more easily. But we've enjoyed touring around South Australia as well as you know, where you are, and over in New South Wales, and even going over to the West Coast as well. And from Perth up to the Monkey Maya and exploring beyond. I've loved it, and because, as you know, you've got marvelous, marvelous history going back pre-settlement, and it's just I've always felt some commonality, perhaps the old Commonwealth roots between Canada and Australia, and certainly New Zealand to the extent as well. And but all of Victoria State I find beautiful, and that I guess it's part of that seaside, and and perhaps our cities are similar size, and that there's a comfort in that urban setting, but it doesn't take much to get into nature.
No, definitely. So, do you have any plans on a fourth in your travel saga? Because it seems like you've travelled far and wide. There couldn't possibly be more to explore.
Right? I feel the story's been told, Kelly. I like what we have discovered and shared, and I love the manner in which we've shared it. I feel that each volume of this Gone Viking series is quite rich with content, and I love the manner in which it feels to me, from a writing or a literature perspective, or just the story itself, is bookended. I feel there's a lovely conclusion to it. Although I do like writing in a manner, I use the term ellipses, like that dot 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 at the end. I'm not always looking for the answer or a tidy, putting a bow on it. To me, a little open-ended for interpretation is lovely. But we also thought that the John Wick series was done after 3, and now look at what Keanu Reeves has done. So we could still be surprised yet. Well, again, thank you for this lovely opportunity. For those folks that do choose to pick up or read through any of the Gone Viking travel sagas, books 1, 2, or 3, oh, and they're all standalone. That would be one thing I would share with readers. You can pick up any one and enjoy it. They are not sequential, just different expeditions, different parts of the globe, different time frames. And I hope that they enjoy them as much as I've enjoyed creating and sharing them.
It's brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me, Bill. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. And if anyone is looking to purchase the books, you'll be able to find a link down below to the publisher's website.
Thank you, Kelly. It's been a genuine privilege.
This video was brought to you by World History Encyclopedia. For more great articles and interactive content, head to our website via the link below. If you like my sweater, you can find this design and a bunch more in our shop at worldhistory.store, or you can find a link for it down below. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon with another video.